Excuse me. This video has to do with Bernie Sanders obviously running for president of the United States and him getting more TV time, particularly in courting the African American and Hispanic vote. One of the guys that I subscribe to basically says two things. One of them I'm going to state now: know your history. You have to know your history. I'm going to play this clip, the entire clip from the Roland Martin show, and I'm going to make my commentary at the end.
And so you see all the hoopla there, all the cameras there. That's exciting. They had breakfast. So the real issue comes down to what are the issues that Sanders is going to talk about. You see former NAACP President Ben Jealous right there on the far right. He's the one who orchestrated this meeting. He was on MSNBC last night. Here's what Ben actually had to say.
This election is absolutely critical for our people. It is absolutely critical for our children. There is no candidate in this race who is fiercer in standing up for those who need allies in the struggle than Bernie Sanders.
Now, obviously, Ben Jarvis is a big supporter of Bernie Sanders, and I support Sanders as well. Now, I'm going to jump to this next section of this particular clip where Roland Martin is going to make an exception to his rule of allowing surrogates not to appear on the show until the actual candidate appears.
So some feel that Hillary Clinton has assumed the black vote is hers to lose. Others say Sanders actually can compete for African-American votes. One of the things that we've made clear, we've been trying to get Senator Bernie Sanders on this show for the last 5 months, and it's been very difficult for his campaign to respond. I have a standard policy that I do not have surrogates of any candidate on the show until the candidate actually shows up. But because of this meeting yesterday, I made an exception. We're going to go right now, go to via FaceTime, former Ohio State Senator and Democratic Party official Nina Turner, who she's a Bernie Sanders supporter. And again, but I have made it clear to the campaign that Nina will be the only person who has represented the Sanders campaign on this show until Senator Sanders decides to come and show up and talk to our viewers on TV1. Nina, I got to ask you, all of a sudden you have, first of all, you saw what happened in Iowa, big win of Sanders in New Hampshire. Now you're shifting to Nevada as well as South Carolina. And so now, right now, Secretary Clinton is up some 40 points in South Carolina. How can Sanders make inroads to the black vote to actually decrease that margin?
Well, good morning, Roland, and I'm glad to be here with you. And definitely, hopefully, we will get the senator on really soon. I think doing what he has been doing, I mean, let's face it, we know that Senator Sanders is from a state, Roland, that is not very diverse. Vermont is 95% white, and so he cannot control the demographics of his state, and this is the first time that he has been on the national scene running for the president of the United States of America. But he is making inroads. We know that the African-American community has a familiarity with the Clinton family, but now they know that they have an option. I've been to South Carolina. I've also been to Nevada, and I've seen the African-American and the Latino community really respond to Senator Sanders' message.
When you talk about that particular message, one of the criticisms we've heard of Sanders is that while he has been in the United States Senate, he has not taken a leading voice on many issues that African Americans are concerned about. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's not true, Ro. I mean, he's been fighting all of his conscious life. I mean, we know his story, starting off as a 20-something, maybe he could have even been 19, but a young person at the University of Chicago, a member of CORE, really fighting those issues even before he probably thought he would ever run for office. He has had that heart-soul agreement, being the mayor of Burlington and then in the Congress. So he's been fighting those issues all of his life. When he talks about income inequality, he's not just talking about income inequality for white folks. He's talking about income inequality for all folks. So he has not just started this message talking about a rigged system, talking about mass incarceration. He's been doing this all of his career. And when he really talks about changing the way that we fund colleges and universities, public colleges and universities in this country. Roland, we know for African American folks disproportionately, this would be a very good thing so that mothers and fathers could dare dream that their children can go to college and not have to walk across the stage saddled with debt. With a degree in one hand and debt in the others. So I think that is a misnomer that he is just getting started in this party for social justice. That's not true.
All right, folks, so your assessment.
Well, my household, my son is 29, he's feeling the burn. My brother is 66 and he's feeling the burn, but that's because he doesn't want a woman as president.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And which is a big problem. And my mother, who is a consistent voter, who gets everybody in the family to vote, who will be out there pushing folks, she's 85. And she says she doesn't know Bernie Sanders and will not vote for him.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, she does mention quite a few issues that I think Bernie is very strong in terms of college affordability and healthcare, single-payer system, which I think is great. But again, those are not issues that I think African Americans are looking to hear from a candidate. They are looking for more specific things that affect the African American community, such as police brutality. One of the issues that we have going on right now with Flint, Michigan, with the lead poisoning and what have you. And I think those are one of the things that African Americans are looking to hear more about from Bernie Sanders. In other words, where have you been on issues that are specific to African? Right. We don't know you. Who are you? And I think African Americans, and that's all it is. I think African Americans just want to be courted.
Right.
I think Nina is correct. Hillary does not necessarily have the black vote in lock. In other words, she has to earn it. She has to work for it.
She's assumed it. That's the thing.
She has assumed it.
That vote.
She has wrongfully
I don't know. Not after what happened to her in South Carolina last time. I don't think so.
Rita, go ahead.
She understands that. I mean, she's hoping to pick up those big votes in South Carolina. But in general, this whole campaign until the New Hampshire loss, Hillary and the Clintons have assumed a black vote. Nobody, wrongfully so. Nobody courts the blacks like the Clintons. And I have to say, it's going to work.
Nina, I got to ask you this here. Yesterday, Michelle Alexander posted a piece on The Nation called Why Hillary Clinton Doesn't Deserve the Black Vote. It's gotten lots of attention. She was trending on Twitter. Certainly, that wasn't a bad piece for the Sanders campaign, and even The Nation, they've already endorsed her. So what do you make of Michelle Alexander's criticism?
Well, Roland, it's a true and righteous criticism. African Americans qualified by the Clintons, and not necessarily digging really deep to see what the policies of the Clinton administration, the impact that those policies has had on the African American community generationally. And so I'm really applaud Dr. Alexander, Professor Alexander, for coming out. We know that her book, The New Jim Crow, is like the Bible if you want to look at mass incarceration in this country and what that mass incarceration has done to destroy the African American community. I want to go back to a point also, Roland, that as far as Senator Sanders has been talking about, over-policing in African American and Hispanic communities. I mean, I've seen him on the stump. He has been in majority white audiences talking about institutional racism and how he, as the next president of the United States, will work very hard to eradicate that. And he wasn't saying that in front of white, black and brown crowds. He was saying that in front of white crowds. I was with him in Iowa when we did a criminal justice forum with two ex-offenders, two African Americans, myself and the senator. Now, of course, the majority of the audience, we were in Iowa, again, demographics, the majority of the audience was white. But for him to have those kinds of conversations, not just in the face of black and brown folks, in a white America, that collectively we have a responsibility to turn this thing around, I think is important. And my last point on that, Roland, in his racial justice platform, you will find him addressing what he calls the 5 violences, and he called them the 5 violences against black and brown folks: political, physical, legal, economic, and environmental. And he was the first one to call for the resignation of the governor in Michigan, even though we know that the media has not been giving him as much airtime as they have secretary. Right. So he has heart-soul agreement.
All right, Nina Turner, we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Nina Turner is tough. I mean, the woman is very eloquent. it hurt my heart when she lost that race for Attorney General of Ohio, but they really came out with both feet against her. And she makes a bunch of valid points as far as Bernie Sanders is concerned. And again, I've rolled back to know your history. The Clintons have done more to damage the black community than anybody in the past 50 years. That 3 strikes law has helped to decimate the black community. And then as far as support, when Clinton signed that welfare reform bill, that caused thousands of families, thousands of black families and white families as well, to be systematically thrown off of the only means of support that they had. So as far as I'm concerned, Hillary Clinton can't say shit to me about anything other than she decides to drop out of this race.